This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, April 10th, 2025. We tell you what you need to know, follow up on the context of those stories, and help each other understand.
Today, Dr. Niki tells us about dire wolves and more from your emails.
Sounds like a band. I'm Jason Howell.
I'm Winter Dow.
Let's start with what you need to know with the big story. The reviews embargo hath lifted for the Google Pixel 9a today. I have had the phone. I actually have it in my hands right now. Can you hear it when I tap it? That's it. I've had the phone for more than 1 week, and I actually took it to Colorado last weekend for a hang with my friend and DTNS regular, Shannon Morse. We had a great time putting it through its paces in the mountains of Colorado. Also took it to Meow Wolf is what it's called. Really cool place. Most controversial change, of course, is the rear-facing camera design. The signature pixel camera bar is removed, and it's replaced with this inset pill-shaped camera array. It's like inset into the device, so there is no protrusion. The main camera gets an upgrade that brings its aperture to f1.7, making it, I found, a solid low-light performer. So again, pixels and cameras doing good stuff. However, the ultra-wide camera on the device is the same one that's been used for the past 3 years, and it still does a good job, but you're starting to kind of see the need for an update, maybe a larger pixel, megapixel count, so that you can have larger images or some sort of update there. And then 8 gigs of RAM, which essentially means it doesn't support the full suite of Google's AI feature set, things like pixel screenshots, call detection for scams. So the AI detecting when there's a scam on the call that you're on, that is not included as a feature on this device. And then finally, vapor chamber discovered in a pre-release teardown. They didn't mention it, but it's there, and a very, very large battery, the largest Pixel has ever seen in their A series. So, this is kind of DTNS meets Android Faithful, as sometimes happens when you and I are on the same DTNS episode. But the embargoes did lift, and this had a little bit of controversy in it, how it was announced and then immediately kind of postponed for the pre-orders and everything. And we don't really have a clear indication yet as far as why that is.
Well, I guess my question is, Jason, do you miss the camera bar at all? Do you think that, as far as in isolation, what do you think of design? But then as a member of the Pixel wider family, what do you think? Is that different?
Yeah. Well, so I do have a full review up on my YouTube channel. Just search for Jason Howell and you can see. And in that, I actually make the claim that if I didn't know this was a Pixel and it was just the device, here's a new device by a random company and it looks like this, it doesn't have the camera bar because there's no attachment to the Pixel camera bar, I'd be like, oh, that's a pretty phone. And I do think that it's a pretty phone. But knowing that it's a Pixel, I can't help but shed at least a little bit of a tear over the fact that this is Google's signature that they've built up over the last 3-4 years. And yes, things change. It's not like the Pixel 10 doesn't have the camera bar. The leaks that we've seen show that the camera bar is going to be there. They just did it for the 9A, maybe as a differentiation. Because it sits alone in that kind of design language, it feels like a total departure. And so I don't know. I kind of wish that there was a camera bar. At the same time, if you're just throwing a camera bar into place just to have a camera bar and it doesn't actually need it, I could understand that too. Why do that? But, other than this is a signature of the Pixel line, and people who really like that design approach are going to miss it, myself included.
It does. I will say that the inset pill-shaped camera reminds me of, and as an Android developer, it's probably my bias, but it reminds me a little bit of material design language, a little bit, just because in the last update, Material 3, they've gone very pilly. There's an abundance, a cornucopia of pill shape. So
yeah, you're right.
I can't help but think that at the very least, even without the really cool Star Trek-y visor, we still have a touch of material. And I think I forgot, we covered this ages ago, but there was a design award that I think the Pixel phone in particular won ages ago because of the synergy between the hardware and the software design. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they're echoing that or something.
Well, yeah, and material, as it were, it's been around for so long at this point, but it was always built on a digital representation of physicality of organic materials and so yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. The camera bar itself, the camera I don't even know what to call it. The inset camera thingy. Is that what we call it? It does have a little bit of that material kind of quality to it, and that unifies the software to the hardware. That's a really good point. I just, I like the sci-fi look of that protruding, like elongated camera bar that Google has going. And luckily it is going to be on the 10 as far as we know. So it's not, gone entirely. It just is for the A series.
It's just funny. Wow. They went the opposite. Before it was protruding, now it's inset.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I will just also punctuate excellent battery life. 5,100 milliamp hours is the largest that a Pixel device has ever seen. And that has been one big kind of criticism that Pixels have gotten in the past is, why can't you give us devices with bigger batteries? Turns out they threw that into an A series phone. So you're getting a lot for $500. And continually speaking, that's always been the case in the last handful of years for their A series phones. I feel like it's consistently a great, if not one of the best value options in Android right now.
I honestly am really excited for your review, Jason, just because I feel like the mid-range is so important and has become such an important segment of smartphones that I just really like seeing good ones.
Yeah, I completely agree. By the way, there is a giveaway. I've never done a giveaway before, but me and Shannon collabed. And so go check out the video and you'll find out more information about that.
Well, DTNS is made possible by you, the listener, thanks to Jeffrey Zilks, Alo, Adam L., Tony Glass, and Michael Engel.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're all awesome. You all win an award. Thank you. There's more we need to know today. Let's get to the briefs.
Well, after yesterday's late-breaking news of the 90-day pause on tariffs in the U.S., markets rallied, with the tech-filled NASDAQ seeing its second-best day in history, climbing more than 12% in response. Apple also saw its best day since 1998 with a 15% increase, a reprieve from one of the company's worst 4-day performances since 2000. Tesla, Nvidia, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet all saw big gains as well. But at the time of this recording, markets have gone south once again, with NASDAQ dropping 5.9%. All of this just punctuates the instability of big tech in a, let's say, dramatic moment of flux for the industry. Amen.
Yeah. When prepping this show, and I got this from Tom, I'm always kind of like looking for the consumer angle on stories like this, because we're not really a stock market show. We're like, I'm not invested in any stocks, so it's not my cup of tea. But I do think it's important to note this particular part of the story, because we've been so used to stability and by a large degree in big tech. And right now things are swinging from best day to worst day, back to best day in a matter of like 3 days. It's really remarkable what's going on right now.
Yeah. And you can't help that won't impact their strategies and thus at the very tail end, us as consumers. So
100%. And this ties right into what you just said. If you feel like you are suffering from a case of tariff whiplash, laptop company Framework knows firsthand how you feel. They announced 10% price hikes yesterday on all of their computers, only to then revert to their normal pricing 1 hour later after immediately catching wind of the 90-day pause on tariffs in the U.S., almost, immediately after they posted that update. Some prices will still reflect the tariff increases that are remaining in China, however. As they say, timing is everything.
You sneak in some Switch 2 pre-orders if we can. Let's see. Well, OpenAI is striking back and countersuing Elon Musk, accusing him of harassment and disruptive tactics aimed at interfering with its transition to a for-profit mode. That transition is critical to the company securing $40 billion in funding by year-end. And OpenAI says Musk's actions are meant to undermine the company and gain him an advantage for his rival AI firm, xAI. A jury trial is set for sometime this spring.
We're basically watching like an AI version of tennis right now. It's like back and forth, back and forth. Microsoft's April 2025 security updates have caused login issues for some Windows users who rely on the Windows Hello authentication system. Some devices running Windows 11 24H2 or Windows Server 2025 with security features like dynamic root of trust for measurement or System Guard Secure Launch enabled are the ones who are experiencing these login issues while attempting to perform push button reset or reset this PC with the keep my files option. I know this is all very specific. And as a not Microsoft person, I'm basically reading Greek right now, but I'm sure this speaks to someone out there. Microsoft has provided a temporary workaround if this is you while they work on a permanent fix.
Well, Tesla has officially entered the Saudi Arabian market for the first time, though the company faces significant challenges there. Infrastructure is underdeveloped with only 101 charging stations, mostly in urban areas. Long distance travel is hindered by the lack of chargers on major routes like the Riyadh-Mecca Highway, which stretches 559 miles without a single charger. The move follows improved relations between Elon Musk and Saudi leadership after a 2018 feud over a failed privatization deal.
Yeah, Tesla really wants to be there. It's been a challenge to say the least so far. It sounds like some of the moves that are happening between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia right now has Musk, really hitting hard on striking these deals in there so that Tesla is in place when some of these upcoming changes possibly go into place so that he can stand to benefit, because there's a lot of external competition there as well. So important market, I think, for Musk right now. Google announced plans to integrate Anthropic's Model Context Protocol, also known as MCP, into its Gemini AI models and SDK. OpenAI recently adopted the open source standard as well, you may remember. The move aligns Google with other companies supporting the protocol like Block and Replit. I'm not really quite sure how to say that, actually, now that I say that out loud, signaling its growing importance in supporting interoperability and scalable AI-powered applications.
Well, I'm down with MCP. You know me, but
I know you. You even got a t-shirt that says that, right? That's
yes,
how much you're down with it. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, interchange is always a good thing. So
100%.
Well, during Google Cloud Next event, the company quietly launched Firebase Studio, a cloud-based platform that brings vibe coding to life for developers and non-developers. The platform is browser-based and integrates generative AI into the entire app development process, from prototyping to deployment. Gemini AI is combined with tools like GenKit and Project IDX to drive app design through natural language, images, or pre-built templates. Firebase Studio is in preview now.
And you're going to do some vibe coding, or what's the deal?
Okay, so I'm an old lady programmer, so if I never hear the phrase vibe coding in my life again, I'll be happier. But I like the intention of it, and actually Firebase is a really important tool for us Android developers and a lot of different people. It's this really cool, a back end as a service. You can get all kinds of stuff that you would need for a full app, all in one place. So this makes just a ton of sense. It's not just vibe coding where you could just throw something together and it kind of works and it's cool because you kind of got your crazy idea. You could also make it a really grown up app as well. If I'm understanding, and if Firebase includes a lot of the other stuff, this is kind of a big deal. And I do love that kind of link between design and development is always been kind of a hard, link, but for a lot of average people like myself, or average developers like myself who have no design talents. So I am excited and I'm going to use this. You be sure I'm going to use it.
I think I'm going to get you a t-shirt that says "I love vibe coding."
I will say thank you, and
and you'll regift it.
Never wear it. I would regift it from you, Jason, but I would.
It's okay. I get it. I understand. The creators of the Flipper Zero have introduced the Busy Bar, a productivity tool with a customizable LED display that can act as a tech-forward alternative to traditional do not disturb signs. It has preset and custom messages, a countdown timer, features an 8-hour battery, a scroll wheel for control, and a large button on the top toggles statuses like busy or on a call. It also integrates with smart home devices and apps via Wi-Fi or USB-C. According to the site, sales of the Busy Bar start soon for $249.
I'm totally buying that. Well, Dig, the social news site recently reacquired by original founders Kevin Rose and Alexis Ohanian, is offering an early access program called Groundbreakers for a one-time fee of $5. Dig says the fee is meant to keep out bots and plans to send proceeds to a community-chosen nonprofit. Groundbreakers will get first dibs on usernames, a badge in their profile, and access to behind-the-scenes updates, mock-ups, and experiments as the site rebuilds.
I mean, $5? That's nothing.
That's
right?
nothing.
For Dig? I mean, Dig's Seems classic. I think I'm probably going to do this.
Me too. Well, those are the essentials for today. Let's dive a little deeper in the ongoing stories and follow up.
You likely have not been able to avoid the headlines that say that dire wolves are back. Well, are they? Tom asked Dr. Niki.
So, Tom, have you watched Jurassic Park?
I have, yes, multiple times.
What was your ethical takeaway from that movie?
Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Isn't that the ethical takeaway of Jurassic Park?
So I think you would not have a chance of working at Colossal Biosciences because they had a different takeaway.
Old friends again, Colossal Biosciences.
Yes, I feel like Colossal these days, every time they come out with a story, they're just waiting for me to go on DTNS and talk about it. So here we are.
Yes, thank you, Colossal, for giving Dr. Niki topics for DTNS.
I love it. And we're going to debunk it. So this came out on March 7th. Colossal Biosciences spread the word of their latest PR stunt, which came in the form of two very cute little puppies that they have been calling, and I use hand quotes here, dire wolves. They named them Romulus and Remus. Of course they did, after the founders of Rome. They also have a younger sister named Khaleesi, because of course they did.
Of course, Game of Thrones. Got it. Okay.
All right, from Game of Thrones. So, but of course, as is usually the case with the last few stories about Colossal, these puppies are not quite what they claim to be.
Yeah, I think most people know direwolves from Game of Thrones, whether it's the book or the TV show. But there was a real thing that was a direwolf. What was the actual direwolf?
Yeah, and Tom, you're near LA, right?
Yeah.
So have you been to the La Brea Tar Pits?
I have multiple times.
Have you seen the giant wall of direwolf skulls that they have there?
Now that you mention it, yes.
One of the coolest places in the country. I haven't been, but I can't wait to go. So, okay. They are in the La Brea Tar Pits because direwolves are animals from the Pleistocene, also known as the Ice Age. This is an epoch that ended about 11,000 years ago. In LA, they got trapped in tar, and then the fossils got pulled out and put in the museum, which is how you got to see them. So what we are calling direwolves are large canids, not necessarily wolves. They look very similar to a wolf, but a little bit bigger and stockier. And they're, in fact, genetically completely distinct from wolves. And we figured this out in 2021 when they were able to pull out ancient DNA fragments from a tooth, I believe.
So canid is the family, is that right?
Yeah, it's a larger family. So like dogs are in there, wolves are in there, and I think foxes may also be in there, but I might be wrong. Dog-looking things, but not necessarily the same genus. And we'll get to that. The reason that direwolves and wolves look similar is due to something called convergent evolution. Have you heard of this term before?
Yes, that's when two things evolve separately, but they're very similar because of the pressures of the environment, et cetera.
Yeah, perfect. And it's one of my favorite things about evolution. I think it's really cool. But exactly. So these animals they lived with areas with similar environmental pressures. They're both carnivores, hunting maybe similar prey, and it leads to them evolving similar adaptations and appearances. Similarly, how the Tasmanian tiger looks really a lot like a coyote, despite it living in Tasmania at the time and being a marsupial.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, even their teeth are very closely resemblant, so it's pretty cool. So in this case, gray wolves are Canis lupus, so they're from the Canis genus, like dogs. And direwolves are from a completely different genus, Anoscion, if I hopefully pronounced that right, Anoscion dirus. And as our friend of the show, Riley Black, mentioned on Blue Sky, the last time they shared a common ancestor was 5 million years ago. So pretty far apart.
A little ways back, yeah.
A little bit.
Before my time. So did Colossal make a direwolf and de-extinct it, quote unquote? I'm guessing the answer, but tell me.
Yeah, as you may now have followed of our past stories, including last month's woolly mouse, your hunch is correct. They did not quite de-extinct it as they claim. They did a lot of work for a giant PR stunt, and we'll get to why I think that's weird. But the scientists at Colossal did decipher some parts of the direwolf genome using these ancient DNA samples, I'm assuming from the previous study. They inserted them then into certain gene areas of the gray wolf, and they used domestic dogs as surrogates to carry gene-edited pups. And they report that these pups are white. You've probably seen the picture at this point. They're pretty stocky. They're stockier than a gray wolf, like thicker limbs and skulls. And also they howl differently.
It sounds like you can make an argument that there is dire wolf in these pups, but would you define them as being a dire wolf?
A few edited genes does not a dire wolf make, Tom, as far as I'm concerned. A wolf has 19,000 genes. We've got about 30,000. And colossal scientists made 20 edits within 14 genes of the gray wolf. So this is more like a clone of a gray wolf with 20 gene edits. Some people have called this a vaporware wolf. To me, it's like putting genetic makeup on a pig. It basically disregards the reality of what this species actually was and how it lived, and instead just pulls out selected aesthetic traits that are going to make for a good news stunt, and it sticks them in another species. So, and that's not even counting for, if you really want to get deeply into genetics, maybe you've heard that environment can affect your genes, like how, don't eat microplastics because it can have some detrimental effects. Yeah, go ahead.
So why do this? like I understand
Hold on. I'm building up to that.
Okay.
I will continue on environmental effect just to be clear. Like, imagine if this was a real dire wolf, things like variations in hormone levels, temperature, it was cold during the Ice Age, parental investment even. Here they're raised by, I think, hounds, dogs, domestic dogs. These things can all change the genetic pathways of how the offsprings grow during, the embryonic phase and later. And of course, none of that is captured in this minimal gene edits, just looking for a cool phenotype. So to your point, why?
Yeah, it seems like this is something that there is actual science to it. They are actually taking, ancient DNA, they are putting it in a living animal. It makes a viable animal. But I'm not sure what you get out of doing it here other than being able to make the headline that says dire wolf DNA is in the pup.
And I agree with you. I have a hard time wrapping my head around this. It feels almost like Colossal is more of an entertainment company almost than a science company. However, it's a ridiculous amount of work to do what they did. And I want to break down the steps to show you just how much work this would be. And every step is also 10 times more work than it sounds because it's science. So first they had to acquire ancient direwolf specimens from a museum and reliably extract ancient DNA, which is really, really hard to do and keep enough fragments that are usable because ancient DNA is super finicky. It degrades with time. And like I said, these were like 11,000-year-old specimens or more. Then they have to patch together this DNA with missing sequences from the genome, with the wolf, like parts from the wolf again, which is a different species, so not super compatible. And then they have to edit the current gray wolf genome to accept these changes. Then there's more steps. Mm-hmm. They make a gene edited nucleus and they inject this into a gray wolf ovum or egg cell. So we've been doing this for a while. The injection, you've probably seen this black and white image of like a little needle going into an egg. This is kind of from the Dolly, the sheep ages. We're quite good at this now. Still a lot of work. More steps are coming. They produce 45 of these ova cells and they develop them into embryos in the lab. That sounds like not a lot of work. It is an incredible amount of work. Then they took 3, I believe, of these embryos and inserted them into the uteri of the surrogate dogs. I was concerned about this because usually with things like cloning, you get a lot of stillbirths and miscarriages, but they said there were none, according to what they said to the reporters. They also adopted the dogs back out to a shelter after this, which seems really irresponsible to me, but anyway. And the pups were born by C-section. So that's the whole list of how much work was put into this for basically a PR stunt. And it made them a ton of money. Like they're worth $10 billion. So I guess that's why, but there's more to it.
That could be enough. It does seem like they want to do actual science, that they're doing actual science here. And then they're elevating it in the public mind beyond what they've actually done. And maybe that's in order to raise more money, which, could be meant to help them to make even better strides in this.
Yeah. And I think that's that's the part they should be talking about, is like, this is cool science, and like gene editing saves people's lives, and like advancing gene editing is a worthy cause, but it feels so tone deaf in the current circumstance. Like, why wouldn't you use this kind of work to save currently endangered species, which is a part of what they say they do? But for example, the black-footed ferret, for example, if you've heard about that, has 300 remaining individuals in the wild. This one has been cloned before. Why not, help out with this population?
Yeah, because black-footed ferret doesn't have as good SEO as direwolf. That's why.
Exactly. And there's even endangered wolves like the red wolves that we could save, but I think it's just not as flashy as a news story.
Yeah.
I do want to mention something and see if you can guess. Okay. So before we wrap up, did you notice anything missing from this supposed great breakthrough in science?
I'm going to kick myself for not noticing, but it sounds like they did the science. They just exaggerated the claim in the end.
How do we know that they did the science?
Oh.
Other than the puppies are there. Okay,
so they published all of this, right?
I don't know.
Oh.
So there's no peer review, there's no raw data, and there's no published data. I'm sure maybe it'll come out. I don't know. Okay. They don't really favor this. And all the ethics aside of like all of this, one of the big issues for me is that this is not peer reviewed. And scientists, working on peer review with their peers, sharing data, confirming findings, replicating results. That is how you make up the basics of science. That's why we have a lot of trust in scientists, because they're all working together to make sure that this is real. If we don't do that, we run the risk of having more things like vaporware wolves. So that part, I think, should be highlighted.
Yeah, if this is not published and peer reviewed, then it starts to become just a cash grab in my mind.
Yeah,
anyway.
Which so far it is, because I have not seen the publication.
Well, if anybody does, send it to us. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. We'd love to see that as well. Dr. Niki, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Tom. See you next time they come out with, I don't know, a dodo maybe.
If you have feedback about anything that gets brought up on the show, get in touch with us on the socials at DTNS Show on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Mastodon at mastodon.social. For TikTok and YouTube, you can find us at Daily Tech News Show.
We end every episode of DTNS with some shared wisdom. Thank you for your shared wisdom. Jim Video has a question.
So Jim Video asked in Discord, I was wondering, when I get text spammed in a group text, should I reply that this is a spam message to help the other recipients, or go directly for the spam button, not letting the spammer ever know I read the message?
Oh boy. I'm sure, let's both answer this. I already know my answer. My answer is flag it immediately, move on. Yeah. I totally understand wanting to save other people, but you put yourself in more risk when you do that. And I think in that scenario, you have to do what's safest for you.
I 100% agree. And I really get it. I totally get it, but I also agree. Like, you actually give them more information when you respond, even if you're trying to be helpful. So I agree. Hopefully we just get the message to everyone that they should just ignore spam and move on.
I suppose if it's a group text and somebody in the group text actually does respond and buys into it or whatever, then we would see that. And maybe then we send that person a direct text and say, hey, don't do that. That's a bad idea or something like that. But so maybe you go that extra step. But yeah, the more, like you said, the more signals you give them, the more they get what they came for, really, at the end of the day. So
what are you thinking about? Got some insight into a story? Share it with us at feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
Thank you for sending that in, Jim Video. Thank you to Dr. Niki for contributing to today's show as well. Thank you, Huyen. Always fun doing the show with you. And thank you for being along for Daily Tech News Show. The show is made possible by our patrons at patreon.com/DTNS. If you want music news and you have less than 5 minutes, well, we got you covered. Check out dailymusicheadlines.com. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.